We're talking to Linda Ravenhill, a one-time intensive care nurse who came up with the idea of making money through teaching using the tool of video streaming on the internet. Now, Linda, let me get this right though. So also, I can be somebody standing in the middle of nowhere in Southern Africa with a cell phone, and I can watch an operation being done here in Johannesburg, and I can learn from it.
Well, that's the ultimate vision. We're still,
You're still struggling with
that. I think where we're at, we call them short form videos. So they're anything from 30 seconds to 3 minutes worth of video. And as you'll know, 3 minutes of videos is a long stretch of time. So that's where we're at with the mobile environment. And it's certainly taking off. We're starting to roll now into sub-Saharan Africa with various pilot studies. M-health is a huge trend globally, but at the moment it's still, like the internet was, very text-based. And I think that's just a case of carrying on until you find that sweet point where we can actually make it, into longer form content. But ultimately, yes, that's the vision. I think if you have something like a smartphone or an iPhone, if you were to log on to one of our existing internet systems, you would then be able to watch the full-length video. But for somebody sitting in a really far-flung area where connection is dodgy at best, we would then deliver short snippets rather than the full-length clip.
How difficult is it to run this system where you have got a situation in many countries, in Southern Africa in particular, where the internet is going down, where the internet isn't reliable?
I think, Chris, what's really surprised me is how good the connection actually is. I think we often, even in South Africa, we go on about how terrible our connection is. But if I've started doing a lot of research, and I find that overseas, they sit with exactly the same problems. For example, I look at colleagues in London who complain about their connection, which sometimes is worse than ours, if you can believe that. So what was a huge surprise to me was when we actually started trialing into those areas, like, for example, Angola, Malawi, Zim maybe not so much, but a couple of the other areas, was that they were able to watch these clips. Namibia has no problem watching the clip on their bandwidth, as does Botswana. Botswana has great bandwidth on their cellular networks, not necessarily their fixed line networks. So that's been a massive surprise for me, that it's not as bad as we think it is. So I think, obviously, we haven't started going yet into the more the further flung areas like Rwanda, etc. But if you look at Rwanda with their IT infrastructure, I'm hopeful that they will have the same response that we've had in Malawi. And I think it's just a case of optimizing your systems to those bandwidths and figuring out what works. And I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I think once we start really rolling with particular programs, we will figure out per country what those issues are, and then we'll just have to keep adapting. I think that's the nature of the
What's the
business.
greatest difficulty you've faced as an entrepreneur?
I think as a woman in technology, it's been a challenge to be taken seriously. Often I go into meetings and people look at me and go, "Where's your techie?" When you say I'm the techie, it's kind of, oh, okay. So I think that was a big hurdle initially and getting people to believe that you actually could do this was, I think, for me, the biggest challenge.
When do you think that'll ever end? I mean, I hear that on this program month in, month out, people saying, I don't get taken seriously because I'm a woman. When do you think it'll ever end?
I think you have to have a sense of humor. I really do think a sense of humor is probably your best guide. I think, it's a matter of time. I think there are lots of amazing women out there doing amazing things. And I think once you've proved your case, you do get taken seriously. It's just, you just have to be persistent and keep at it.
Was there ever a difficult time in your business when you perhaps wanted just to pack it in and walk away?
Often.
When was that?
Every second week? No. I think initially in the beginning it was extremely difficult, especially when you are self-funding and you believe in something so passionately and you can't get anyone else to see how powerful it could be. Then I think there were very dark days. I would have to say probably last year, I thought, okay, I've been completely insane. This was a nice dream, but no one's going to take me seriously. And within a week of me deciding it was time to get a real job, we started landing multinational contracts, and it's been all go from there.
And how big is your operation as we speak?
Well, we work virtually because we are an internet environment. So we contract a lot of our staff, and I would say if I was to look at the whole team, we're about 20 odd people. Not all of those people are employed full time, though. They are contract staff. For example, our film crew are contract based.
Now, in some ways, it all sounds too simple to be true. Is the fact that you go in there, you film an operation, you beam it out, people watch it, you get sponsorship. Yeah. That's how it works. But surely there must be some big stumbling blocks in the way. I mean, what about regulation for a start?
Yes, I think particularly in the medical industry, regulation has been the interesting thing we've had to work our way around. But I also think it's been the good thing for us, because coming from a medical background, we obviously understand all the medical legal issues. So we've been accredited by most of the accredited agencies, and we've overcome those stumbling blocks. In fact, before we even went into the industry as our target market, we went to see the various professors, we went to see the various accredited agencies and said, this is what we're doing. From a medical legal perspective, would you be happy with that? So we tried to clear the path for ourselves before we even started, and I'm happy to say we've got a very good working relationship. That's really been our biggest challenge, I think, from a legal point of view on that side, but I think we're managing it well.
And how many people are doing this kind of thing?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody's doing what we do. I think there are people doing bits and pieces of it. For example, there is audio streaming. Everyone's familiar with WebEx. There are those type of products, but the difference between us and them is that we actually work in this environment. So whereas WebEx requires, it's an overseas product, it's not really customized for Africa. So you'll still get your occasional buffering, etc. on those platforms, whereas ours is an African solution for an African problem.
How much do you fear competition?
Enormously. Obviously we're small, so we don't have the budgets that a big multinational would have. But I think what makes us different is we've been doing this for 5 years. So we're quite established in the healthcare market, certainly. But yes, competition makes you strong. I think we're constantly evolving, we're constantly innovating. We're aware it's a matter of time before other people realize it's a good place to be.
And where do you think that competition might come from in your field?
I think it will come from technology companies, and I think it could very possibly come from an international company, because there are webinar type softwares in existence, obviously like Adobe, Sonic, WebEx, and they have existing platforms, so it's a case of them figuring out how to make their video content work here. But I think what makes us different is we have customized it to this medical market. So we've covered all the bases for the medical market per se. But if I was to see competition coming, it would be from there.
And talking more broadly about the industry, I mean, every time I pick up a newspaper, they're telling me there are more cables coming to the continent, things are going to get cheaper,
Yep.
things are going to get better. What's your hopes and fears in this direction?
I'm delighted. I cannot wait. I think from my point of view, initially when we discovered this buffer-free video, we managed to get it to work, we hinged our business on that. But you realize that's not forever. So we've built a lot of products that support the video. So the video is just one component. So incoming bandwidth can only but benefit us.
But let me just tell you, I mean, I'm just a little bit cynical. I mean, about 2 years ago, I went to a launch, a company, I'll remain nameless, but they were talking about how soon there'll be no more buffering, it'll be so much faster. And every time when I use the internet, I still think to myself, well, maybe one day. But it's still not happening fast enough.
No, it's not happening fast enough. Look, that's worked in our favour, I have to be honest, because we have figured a way around that. But I have seen a difference though, Chris, I must say. Certainly, even in the last 18 months, it hasn't been a massive, monumental difference. But I have seen certainly in areas where when we get queries back from clients, we're not getting the same volume of queries back from people saying, I'm struggling a little bit here or there. We don't get really half the amount of queries that we used to get. So I'm hopeful that that's a sign that the bandwidth is kind of permeating a little bit better.
Now at this stage, you say you've got about 20 people working for you. The next stage is to get a massive office and hundreds of people working for you. Are you scared about, a lot of entrepreneurs are very scared about this next stage. They feel they're losing control, They feel they're losing touch with their business. What do you feel?
Yes, I'd have to say I feel that. I certainly think we're in what they call the tornado now, where it's just, sometimes it feels like it's organised chaos, because we are in a growth spurt. I would like to think that because we're a virtual business, we can continue to operate the way we are. And it's a case of managing your systems and making sure that we're very, very system-based. We have to be, because we have people all over the country and into Africa who work with us. So an office really is a very small part of our business. If we ever worked, we probably wouldn't get the big office with the view. But yes, I am concerned about growth, because I think one of our key points is service. And often when companies get bigger, they lose those touch points. And I think we'll fight very hard not to do that.
And one thing I mentioned earlier in the program is the fact that this YouTube thing. I mean, the things that you can't find on YouTube these days is the things that I start thinking about sometimes. I mean, almost everything you could name is there. Are you not concerned one day someone will be putting operations on YouTube?
I think they already are. I know that you can search tonsillectomy and there it is. I think ours is more medical education, and that'll always be regulated. So what we stream on our platforms is really stuff that cannot be viewed by the general public. It has to be behind firewalls and logons, etc. So we differ from YouTube quite considerably in that respect.
And just finally, I mean, what do you think gives people the entrepreneurial edge? What do you think makes an entrepreneur?
Persistence. I think you have to be able to work on your own. You have to be incredibly persistent in the face of obstacles. You have to be completely passionate. I think the more passionate you are, the higher your chance of success. Yeah, certainly be my experience.
Linda Ravenhill, former nurse, now teaching the rest of Southern Africa on medical matters through video streaming. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck.